Hello, my name is Mr. Chipman, and I teach biology and AP biology at Murray High School in Murray, Kentucky. And if you're like me, you've been waiting for today because today is when the AP scores came out. And of course, first thing this morning, I sat down and looked at them and was rewarded by how awesome my students did. They just knocked it out of the park. They did fantastic, and I hope that yours did as well. Looking at national averages and state averages, I know that there were some that struggled, and so I decided to make a video to talk about the things that really work well in my classroom, maybe encourage you, inspire you to make some changes in your own classroom to help your students out. And so let's talk about that real quick. So, what does it take to do a good job with this? What does it take to help raise your scores? A lot of people really struggle with this. I'm a part of several social media groups that talk about AP biology regularly and talk about different techniques and strategies. And I look on there. I don't really post a whole lot anymore, but I see some of the different things that people are doing, and over the years of just kind of, you can tell some patterns that are going on in people's classrooms, and I thought this would be helpful to just sort of help people work through that. And if this is something that you like to see, I'd encourage you to like this video, subscribe to my channel. And in my channel, I have a complete AP Bio curriculum. I have an honors bio curriculum, zoology, anatomy, and physiology. I have several things going on here. I'm actually currently working on reworking my entire AP biology curriculum because of the updated CED, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. So if you have questions about how I do things, please comment down below, and I will answer every comment. So, just a little bit about the score breakdown here in my state, which is Kentucky. My school had an 87% pass rate, which was phenomenal. I was very pleased with my students and how they did. My state had a 57% pass rate, which was seems very low this year. Normally it's closer to the global average, but this year it was not. Our state, like other states, are dealing with a shortage of teachers, I'm sure, and so I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but you can see the global average there is around 70% pass rate, which I feel like is higher than previous years. I don't have the data here in front of me, but it does seem like that has gone up. So you can see that. So what are we doing differently that perhaps you're not doing or another school is doing? And again, I don't claim to have all the answers, but I do know that my students do tend to perform higher than state and global averages, and I think that there's some reasons for that. And so let's look at that. Number one reason is content. If you're not teaching your content, your students will not pass the exam. There are 8 units in this course, and my school district has 50-minute class periods and 175 days. And this past year, we were able to finish all the content and have 3 weeks plus 2 days in order to review for the exam. And we used that, which we'll talk about in a moment. You have to teach your content. You cannot get to the end of the year and have 3 units left over. And we'll talk about that in a second. And I'm not passing judgment. People have circumstances that come up in their lives and whatnot. But there are myriad ways to teach content nowadays. You can use a channel like mine, for instance, to help, to supplement. Someone who has taken the time and who has made videos for all of the course content. My students use my videos as well, that's who I make them for. But I get comments from all over the world of students who are able to use that. Of course, I would encourage you to make your own content and teach your own students because no one knows them like you do. But frankly, there's no excuse for not finishing the content that you have signed up to teach your students, and you have to do it. There's no way around it. I put a picture of the course description up here. You notice that it's effective fall 25 because we just had a new one, which is just kind of laid out differently. It was laid out differently enough for me to want to redo everything, just because I tend to be a little obsessive about things like that. But it's perfectly laid out. There's no secrets. There's no hidden. There's nothing there that's hidden. I teach this. I use this as my guide, and I teach everything that's there, and I don't teach anything that's not there. I know that a lot of people will say, well, we teach above the content and all of that. Why? I don't understand that. I think if you would spend your time effectively teaching the things that are laid out in this document, then you can provide your students the best opportunity for success. And I know that's hard for some, and I know that is difficult. And I hear the stories a lot, and people have life circumstances that come up in their own personal lives, but I know it's hard. And so that kind of brings us into the next thing here, is that planning is first and foremost. Here's a picture of your standard district calendar. I don't know where this one came from, and there it is. But you've all seen something that looks like this, I'm sure. But every year I use this to plan my entire year. When I leave in May, I have the entire next school year already planned. And I use this document that my district puts out. We put it out probably February or March of the year and for the next year, and I immediately get it out and start working on it. It's like it's like a holiday for me almost. I get excited about it. And so what does that do? It sets me up for success. It sets my students up for success. I can already tell them when the Unit 6 exam is going to be. Now, and I just picked Unit 6 randomly. Now, obviously, there's going to be things that occur, snow days or whatever. But, the AP exam date doesn't move, right? And so it's an unmoving target. And so I will switch things around in order to adjust. But, a lot of times what I hear is teachers talk about is, well, my students are out for this and that. And one of the things that I tell my students at the beginning of the year is that this class is a train that is moving forward at a regular rate. And you can stay out in front of it, or you can get ran over by it, but it doesn't stop. And so, my students, like your students, are involved in sports and activities and who knows what, everything that they can possibly do. But the train doesn't stop. And so that's one of the reasons I started making videos, is in order to accommodate those students who are busy. And I warn the students on the beginning, on the front end, don't take this class if it's not something that you can keep up with. If you're going to miss 20 days of school because you like to be in every club, then perhaps AP Bio isn't the right thing, or you need to adjust your expectations accordingly. And so, planning, number one. It's if I can, aside from obviously teaching and knowing your content, planning the year out and having a plan that I'm going to finish on such and such date, and we're going to have this much time to review. Necessity. I can't imagine getting to the end of the school year and having not finished your content because you didn't appropriately plan. And that may hurt some of you, and I'm sorry, but that is the facts. The teachers who do the best tend to plan the most. I work next door to a teacher who teaches AP Chem, and he's world renowned for his AP Chem abilities. And he and I have the same philosophy. We plan to succeed, and it makes a difference. Another big difference is I use the data to make adjustments. Here's just some random data I pulled from AP scores. I look at my students' data throughout the year, and I make adjustments on that. I use data from previous years in order to make adjustments. I use the instructional reports that AP sends us in order to make adjustments. My students had been underperforming in FRQs, for instance, and so I made adjustments to that. Certain units, for instance, my students did worse in units 1 and 2 this year. Frankly, because I didn't push them as hard because they're not tested as much. But we're going to work harder on Unit 1 and 2 next year. And so that was an example. And so use data to make adjustments. I don't have to harp on this one as much because you should be doing this. We are provided with a ton of data from College Board, and you should be keeping up with that in your own classrooms as well, just throughout the year. If you haven't started doing that, I encourage you to start. Keep up with data, keep up with test data, keep up with I don't keep up with individual question data as much, but you could do that, and that would be helpful, particularly using something like AP Classroom or even Khan Academy. You could use that as well in order to keep that sort of data. But I encourage you to use data to make adjustments and prioritize FRQs. Terrible story this year. Did a couple live stream review sessions, and I got an email from a student the next morning at my school. His kid was from Seattle, which is nowhere near Kentucky, and he thanked me because in my live stream I took one of the previous year's FRQs and just went through all of them and answered them and talked about them and answered questions. And he said that his teacher had only given them one FRQ all year, and that he was thankful that I took the time to go through FRQs. Now, I realize that students say things and sometimes exaggerate, particularly concerning their teachers. And so that may have been an exaggeration. But man, just to give you an example, my students probably were exposed to 50 plus FRQs throughout the year, either as a scored assessment or as a practice that we did in class together and didn't grade, or through the practice exams that were released through College Board. And so by the time they take the exam, they have been exposed to questions like this that you see on my screen. That we don't specifically learn N-terminal gas Derman in class, right? But you have seen questions like this before, and they don't throw you off, right? Being exposed to things like this on the front end will prepare you for those times when you see something that you're like, okay, I don't know what that is specifically, but I do know what cell signaling is, right? I do know how to look at a table like this and write about it. And so strongly encourage you to work in weekly FRQ practice for your students. It will pay dividends because not only will they have practice writing and getting that right, which there's a certain way to answer an FRQ question, right? And you need to be teaching that. But also content, it'll bolster their content as well. And just, again, preparing them to see and respond to questions like this on the front end is so vital. And with that, practice. I cannot stress enough how important it is for your students to be exposed regularly to AP-style questions, not just the FRQs, but also multiple choice questions. Thankfully, we have a fantastic resource with AP Classroom is a great resource, and I've heard our teachers complain, well, all the questions are online. So if a student has taken the time to memorize every question and answer, then more power to them. They are learning something, right? They're not doing that, by the way. They're too busy doing other things that aren't as helpful as that would be. And so I encourage you to use those questions. Use resources like Khan Academy as well. My students use Khan Academy to review. I don't assign it, but and Khan has a pretty good repository of questions and that are similar to College Board type questions. Again, I cannot stress enough, the more questions that a student does, the more likely they are to pass. I can look at the students who passed my exam, and I know that those students spent more time reviewing than the ones that didn't. There, and some say that, well, it's an intelligence thing. Your students are better. Or what? No. This intelligence is a factor. We all have students who can walk in on day one and pass the test, right? But the difference in those average to above average students, the difference is going to be how much time did they put in, right, in practicing and making themselves more familiar with the types of questions that they're going to see, and answering those and reading them, because it's a reading test, right? It takes time, it takes effort, and if the students have been exposed to that before, they're going to be less afraid of that when it comes time to actually do the test. Hopefully this is helpful. And again, this is not me judging you. I don't know you, right? This is me trying to help you. And so hopefully this is helpful. If you have questions about the way that I do things from day to day, please leave me a comment down in the comment section, and I will definitely take the time to answer your question. Thank you for watching.